It is just an honor to be here, made even more so by having the opportunity to sit with a sister and talk about things that we believe matter. Jane Pauley is a self-described shy person. And if you give her a compliment, and I've watched this in person, she's very artful at deflecting that spotlight back to someone else. And so while she has awards that carry names like Cronkite and Murrow, she has Emmys on a shelf. Those are not the things I think that she's ever focused on. What she does have, and what I do believe she will not disagree with me on, is that she understands her true north. She knows who she is. She's always known who she is. And that's the thing that audiences understood when network executives actually didn't. That's what makes her a trailblazer. That's what makes her a star, whether she likes that term or not. Please welcome Jane Pauley. Hello there.
And yes, we have been on the same hair journey. Oh, yeah. And I mean, what you saw was the Sunday morning piece of it, but you could have put my face in every hairdo you had, except there was the top knot thing you did.
That little ponytail thing?
I had other versions. Somebody, a Washington Post critic once described my hair as it was a dead squirrel on my shoulder.
You did coin the bad hair day term.
Yeah, prove me wrong, but yes, I did not coin the phrase hat hair, but bad hair day, me. And I, anybody who lived through the 70s and 80s, part of the 90s, on camera as we did, the evidence is out there painfully to see.
You can't erase it. You yearn to every day, but you can't.
That was a lovely introduction, by the way.
Wasn't it?
And sometimes I've been introduced and been flattered, or will this ever stop because of my resume is as old and long as I am. But you paid attention. You pay attention. I appreciate that, and I identified with the things that you said, and one in particular, if I could just point it out, when you say the true north part, and that's a compliment that I am not inclined to bat down, because I do tend to, I'll bat down most compliments, but that one I can really relate to when you said that she knows who she is. But here's the deal, and the young person inside of most of you today, I'm sure, went through a period. I always knew who I was, I just never knew how the hell I got here. So there was that question, and my daughter, who was in her mid-30s, and asked, shouldn't I know, what I'm doing more now, like you did. No, I didn't. I didn't know how I got there, but the idea that I, at some level, always knew who I was, I can relate to that.
It can really save you. I read Skywriting, all of it.
You've got a hardcover.
Highlighted.
A hardcover copy, ladies
highlighted
and gentlemen.
A lot of it.
Thank you.
And I kind of want to draw some of this from that, because when you came to Chicago in 1974, at the age of
24.
75 at 24.
24.
24.
Yeah.
The critics, some of us who are of a certain age remember this, younger ones don't. Even before Jane got off the plane or out of the car from Indianapolis, she was already pretty much being savaged by the critics because she was going to be the first woman in America to co-anchor an evening broadcast. She was young, she was beautiful, she did not have a long resume, and among the variety of descriptions of you was smart sorority girl, the corn-fed Catherine Deneuve.
Oh, I like that one.
Gary Deeb, who's gone now, quoted some unnamed person as saying she had the brain of a cantaloupe. It was
Oh, by the way,
savage.
when Gary Deeb wrote that, the only person at WMAQ who had met me was the man who hired me. So, I mean, maybe I had the IQ of a cantaloupe. Maybe he called Gary and said, "I've just hired a woman with the IQ of a cantaloupe." But
well, he didn't. But so you walk in with the lowest expectations, and yet for women, the highest expectations. And there are all those women over there at the WBBM table who, on your first broadcast, please tell the story.
oh, Lord. So I had been subject to this welcoming committee for about 3 months. I was in Indianapolis. It was announced that WMAQ was hiring this, a girl really from Indianapolis, not Chicago, with a very limited resume to be the first woman, and so I was not, the Chicago press corps was not impressed. And so all summer long, to make a long story long, which is what I generally do, so I'm looking for an apartment here, and I'm standing in a parking lot asking directions. Meanwhile, I have not moved here. I'm looking. I haven't started on television yet. Parking lot attendant, I ask for directions. He looks at me and he says, "Are you that new girl at Channel 5? And I said, "Yes," brightly, I've been recognized. And he said, "Poor baby." Poor baby. Anyway, so time passes. My debut happens. By this time, I haven't been on the air, but I think most of Chicago knew who I was. Was I long for Chicago? Probably not. So I make my debut. I survive, and the story that was later reported that I cherish is that the women at WBBM, and at that time, and WBBM was a real news operation. Chicago was going through a lot in those days. So the women at WBBM watched my debut, and as it was reported, adjourned to the ladies' room to say, "Yay!" because I hadn't embarrassed them. I had not, I guess they felt that I had the potential to really set them back, but I hadn't. So on behalf of a generation of WBBM ladies, I say thank you. That was, well, women with women, it matters, so keep it up.
It does. So Frank Rich, who's really a brilliant writer and was a great critic out of New York, tried really hard to understand you. He tried really hard. And he wrote, you quote him as saying, "Perhaps someday she will grow old. And in an industry that has little use for older women, she could be in real trouble." You carried on your shoulders so much because he also added, "In the meantime, there are far worse ways to wake up than looking at Jane Pauley." Smart, beautiful, sturdy, self-made, sturdy, unfailingly pleasant. She really is the daughter Americans love to dream about and except on television, never find.
That was my life. Imagine that. You know, I knew, because of the True North thing you were talking about, I knew that that was a myth, that he was writing a myth because he couldn't find a story in whatever my True North was. But life is funny. In your 20s, I happened to be on television, and then later network television. 30s, you know, 40s, you grow into yourself, and to be a young woman.
That's a good way to put it.
Under the spotlight like that was for me, and I think for you too, to a degree, to be forced to do interviews wherein you know, I don't have a clue who I am. When at commencement, maybe you had a commencement speaker who told you to, you know, just be yourself or follow your bliss or whatever, and you think you're the only one under a cap and gown who, I don't know who I am, I don't got no bliss. You know, I have to tell you, you know, that have no bliss or not know your passion can last all of your life for most of us. You know, good luck if you've got one, and if you don't, join the club. But to be young like that is just to be reminded daily that, well, I guess there was no there. That's what it felt like, is that Frank Rich, who was a wonderful reporter, noticer, failed. He was sent to find a story and he found no there. It kind of confirmed a sense of absence that was just normal. But, you know, to be young like that, you don't know. And this is not just true of young women on television. It's you. You know, back when you were a young woman. It's you when, you know,
if you still are.
The girl sitting next to you who is your daughter, because I met some women who brought daughters with them today, flattered.
You know, Emily Barr's daughter watches you every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
I have been told reliably.
Well, Emily actually, I think is the one who was telling me a story about her daughter and telling her that you know, she was going to see me today, and I was prepared, as I sometimes hear, for her daughter to have said, "Who?" And she didn't.
She did
not.
not.
Sunday morning is a special show. Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons you wrote this book, maybe the main reason, is you gave people a window into your journey with bipolar.
Yeah.
And in this book, you identify, I was so interested because I know you've been in London, I think.
Recently,
getting ready for the royal wedding. You wrote about Diana, and you said you identified with her. A shy person.
No, really? Jane identified with Princess Diana? Okay,
yes,
carry
you did,
on.
and for very good reasons.
Okay.
Having a public life, being a shy person. But you say, I was still in the dark, hiding in the phone booth, getting out more, schmoozing celebrities, working the phones, getting the get, all of what you're talking about. While these things were fundamental expectations for someone in my line of work, they were antithetic to me. The cumulative cost of years of guilt and denial would be paid for with my health. But getting sick would be freeing, a turning point. I was beginning to learn my own strengths.
You read the book more recently than I have. Really?
Is it not true anymore?
What page is it? No,
It's highlighted, right?
Yeah, I have to explain that for most of my career, I mean decades of my career, and I have the clips to defend this, my reputation for whatever Frank Rich found or didn't find was for being normal. That True North thing you said is kind of a way to...
But trustworthy. The audience, if I may be so bold, trusted you. They believed you. And people would agree to talk to you because they believed you would be fair to them.
Yeah, and I hope, yes, I generally tried. But I've said for years that normal which is an adjective that I am accustomed to seeing. There was an article about Meredith Vieira when she took over the Today Show, and I was at home, eating a bowl of Cheerios probably and reading the Times. And at the bottom of this article about Meredith, the reporter says, "Morning show hosts are supposed to seem normal. That's the quality that got Jane Pauley her job in 1976. Normal." And I had to laugh because normal was probably the only descriptor of me that over the years I had totally embraced. In fact, I probably encouraged that reputation, normal. Normal, Midwestern, they're basically synonymous. They actually are. And I'm you can see Indiana from this hotel. I'm a Hoosier 5 generation, so I'm as Midwestern and normal as they come until I was 49 years old. And at 49, I was treated for hives. And I think alluding to that stress and that pressure, that cumulative thing that you read from there, they didn't come out as bipolar disorder. They came out as hives. These were a pernicious form of hives that got me into the ER twice, and I was treated appropriately with steroids, which, as a doctor said at the time, were the big guns. So these, because you may not know this, but hives can kill you. So big guns, and then there was a side effect of steroids. Medicines do have side effects. And one of them for steroids, typically, commonly, is depression. This typically resolves itself. In my case, it did not. So what had happened after 10 months was doctors recognized that I had an unknown and unrecognized genetic vulnerability to a mood disorder. The hives may have been an expression of stress, may have been an expression of a depression that was not named, but that combination of steroids for the hives, antidepressants to treat the side effect, was a 2-stage booster rocket. And at the age of 50, it was revealed for the first time that I had a genetic vulnerability to bipolar. So I was not bipolar for the first 50 years of my life, but I will be bipolar for the rest of it. And the astonishing thing to me, and the importance of writing about that and being able to tell a story, is that I took my meds last night, as I have every night for 17 years. I've not had a recurrence. There is no question that I have a mood disorder. But I've not yet had a recurrence. Take care of myself. I was worried the other night when I got in so late because of the severe icing. So our plane on landing at O'Hare turned around and went to Indianapolis, which is
How
my hometown.
ironic, don't you think?
So I go back to Indianapolis. So we got in around midnight, and I was a little freaked out because we had plans the next morning. Sleep. Sleep is the #1 factor in maintaining my well-being. So for many years now, I have been very careful about doing everything I can to prevent a recurrence. No doctor has ever told me that I can prevent it, but if there's anything I can do, I will do. And in the meantime, 17 years of what my kids call me, crazy lady, sometimes affectionately, I wrote a memoir. I never thought I'd write a book. I wrote a memoir. I wrote Your Life Calling, A Life Out of the Blue, which is mostly not about me. So there's 2 books. They were both on the New York Times bestseller list long enough, which is to say at least a week. that I can identify myself as the New York Times best-selling author, Jane Pauley, and I mean, the astonishing thing, that's kind of a joke, but
That's what I call you.
Humble bragging is probably what that is. But, and then at the age of 65, I start the best job of my career. I'm no longer 65, by the way. You've already done the math. But at 65, I take Charlie Osgood's esteemed place on the Sunday morning, a show. It's still kind of, oh, really? I did.
May I say?
At the age of 65.
She takes the job.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that I say that, not that, I mean, you know, which number is more astonishing? The Today Show at 25 or Sunday morning at 65? You know, the world was a different place when that 25-year-old turned up. I don't think baby boomer was a phrase that was even in currency at that time, but it was a fact. We're coming. Baby boomers are coming. Women are coming. Working mothers were coming. And now, at the flip side of my career, at 65, what that says about you and for you is a lot.
Because it is the story not of just second acts, but third acts and fourth acts. And just because people in television do pay close attention to this, Jane's broadcast Sunday morning, even when the vaunted Charlie Osgood had it, did not have the ratings it currently has. It is the behind 60 Minutes, which is the #1 ratings grabber of the networks for magazine shows and virtually for everything. Jane is #2.
That's true.
And what I love about it is she calls CBS Sunday Morning the gateway drug to 60 Minutes. But beyond that...
Did I say?
Yes,
I'm
you
sorry,
did.
I laughed too hard. I didn't
was
remember
very
that.
good.
Okay.
Beyond that, she's beating Meet the Press and Face the Nation. So you want to talk about a Sunday morning destination for an old babe. It's pretty fabulous.
Yeah. So, set your DVRs.
But let's go back to a darker thing. The Me Too movement is all around us.
Yeah.
And there you were 25 years old, you were on your way to the network. You had to have been, I would imagine, grabbed, propositioned, put in an unusually difficult position, yes?
Pretty much not a lot. I had one really minor episode where someone suggested we'd have an affair, and
Was this a network executive?
Well, yeah, but not someone who was in any position to affect my career at all. I mean, and it wasn't. I felt sorry for him, and it was kind of creepy, but it was a minor thing. So that, if anything worse than that, which, wasn't a traumatizing experience, no. Astonishingly, though, I had lunch with 6 or 7 of my close girlfriends who are all my age, give or take 5 years. And around the table, everyone had a story. But that said, I'm just reminding myself of something, because at the age of 67, that's how my brain works. Sorry. Around the table, we all had stories. When I turned 50, I had a lunch with my oldest friends. We got together from our lives and a little reunion. Hadn't been together for a long time. Around the table, this was before I was diagnosed. So I didn't know that I, at that table, was in fact the only one who didn't have a serious health story to report. A serious health story, and some of them were related to, mental health crises, either their own or a husband or a brother. There was a near-death cancer, and just around the table, and that was months from me finding out, I have a story too, I just don't know yet. Gosh, life happens to all of us, and I've met a number of you already today. We shook hands, or we hugged, or we had selfies together, and one thing that I know is that there isn't a woman here older than 18 who doesn't already have a wonderful, rich story to tell. And some of the stories that I have experienced, and you might stand up and say, I got a Me Too thing, Jane. I got a real one. Or they're still going on. So we have. It's important that we have these conversations. And if I can take a real detour, my son-in-law is here. My son-in-law is here. Wait a minute. No. Okay, Bobby's at the Zurich table over there. Bobby, stand up. And that's my handsome son-in-law. Now, ovation. Yay! Bobby is very curious. He's a curious. I don't mean he's strange. That's my daughter. He married her. What can I say? But he's a curious person, and of a generation that I think. We touched on this moments ago when we were backstage. Don't you think that it's changing? And I do believe that Bobby's represents a generation that is coming up, taking for granted. He works with those astonishing women at Zurich that he's sharing a table with. He married a strong woman. His mother-in-law, oh my God, his mother-in-law. And it just, I think it's a different world. I think it's a new world and a better world. I do.
I hope you won't think this next question is shallow. But
I like your shoes too.
Thank you. Jane and I yesterday, because Jane came to DePaul University, where she allowed us to give her our Outstanding Journalist Award, we're both standing on the stage, and someone sitting at the table right in front of us goes, they even wear the same shoes. So here's my shallow question. There you are, being profiled in the New York Times, being interviewed by Samantha Bee. And Samantha Bee is, really a hot number, but you are far hotter in an all-black leather suit. I'm just wondering, what thinking went into that wardrobe choice?
Okay. All right, I will predicate the very interesting answer to that by saying that I am so shallow. What I mostly remember from my recent interview with Tina Fey is that when she portrayed Sarah Palin every Saturday night on, during that election cycle, and then finally Sarah Palin appears on Saturday Night Live. Do you remember that? They were able to solve the mystery of the color of lipstick Sarah Palin wore. That they had not been. It was lip liner and gloss. Why would I remember that? Because I'm a shallow person.
I'm so glad.
Okay, so what was the question?
So
that was the predator.
No, sorry, you got it. But we have a few questions zoomed in on my iPad from our audience. And it's so interesting because they're all from Anonymous. Which newsroom norms that block women's advancement are still around?
Oh.
I'm thinking too on this.
You begin, and I will.
Oh,
think about
fine,
that.
fine. I think there's still a glass ceiling. Marty Wilkie has busted it. Some women have busted it, but I still think most women have not. I still think, and especially for younger women, and this isn't putting it on the newsroom, there's plenty to put on too many men in the boardroom still. But the other part that drags women down are that younger women think that they can do it on their own, and they don't understand that you have to carry your sister with you, or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, now you go.
I'm going to be a little perverse about this, and because I would like to give a young woman, something that she can work with, and the big picture that says it's still, it's still a bitch out there. It doesn't really help you today. I think the most useful thing is to go, for me, to identify with my formerly much younger self and remember how scared and uncertain I was while confidently delivering the news of Chicagoland to you, like I knew what I was talking about. That uncertainty belongs to all of us. We all are uncertain. And so don't, you don't go home thinking I'm the only one who felt that way today. I'm the only one who the boss looked at funny, and by funny I don't mean in a Me Too moment. I mean,
is this like what you told our students yesterday, that everything is not misogyny?
Yes, I think that if you think that everything is misogyny, then your anger and frustration really doesn't have anywhere to go until the world becomes a different place, which may happen next year or it may happen 2 generations from now. That's not very useful. So I would urge a young woman who is facing the world where there may still be glass ceilings and look at it as a challenge. And our generation, when you were described as accurately, and Carol Marin is known coast to coast, not just here in Chicago, as someone who was in the trenches. That's where your career, you have and continue to work in the trenches. I don't do trenches. I don't do trenches. So learning, but what I do, and learning that there were things that I did even then really well, and even today a lot better, while at the same time there's an array of things that describe the people you want in a newsroom. Not all of them are the in the trenches people. Not all of them are investigative journalists. Not all. So we need an array of talent. So whatever your career is, you're not everything. I grew up thinking that what a burden it was always being compared to Barbara Walters, or Diane Sawyer, or Katie Couric, or Connie Chung. The women who were just, or Leslie Stahl. I don't know anybody. Leslie Stahl loves her work more than anybody I know. Maybe you do, but. Diane was smart and beautiful, and Connie was tenacious, and Katie was.
See what I mean about this compliment thing?
So,
she just
but
is
when
not
I'm getting to that, I realized in my probably 50s that the only person really ever saying that was inside my head. That I had done fine with my own strengths and abilities with, normal work for me, I guess. And but it was in my head that, the Barbara, the Katie, whatever. And many of you, some of you were thinking, I don't know what she's talking about. I am so confident. Erica can do black belt.
Everything.
Really? And big law, really? And really? Okay, so, does Erica, do you have any self-doubt? So maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But a lot of you do, and a lot of you are young, and I just want to assure you that youth doesn't last that long. Grow out of it. And then look around at all of these women who do care about what becomes of you in your generation and feel strengthened by that, really. Yeah.
Can you help us know the difference between fake news and news?
Yeah. Fake news is what someone generally says when they are offended by something that was
True.
You talk fake news and the media. There is no the media. There is no the media. I work at CBS News. I do not work at WMAQ. I do not work for the Today Show. I work for CBS Sunday Morning. My show is in competition with Willie Geist, who has a morning show on NBC. I wish him well. His father is a beloved member of the Sunday morning family, but he's the competition. We do not get together with the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune or the Pittsburgh Press.
Or the National Enquirer.
Or the National Enquirer, agreeing on what the fake news of the day will be. There is no monolith. We are, the media, we are annoying sometimes. You have the sources that you go to. I do too. The human brain, we all cherry pick. I watch a show, on cable that may reinforce my whatever. Some are truthier than others. Some are, anyway. But you'll choose yours, and you'll think the rest are not just wrong, but maybe have bad motives. I do that too. Those bad motive people, they can't be trusted. I trust the ones that I choose. But, we are in trouble as a nation. I am sincere about this. We are in trouble as a nation if we haven't raised a citizenry who recognize that hate them or love them, the free press is as an essential underpinning of our country. It's why the First Amendment was about freedom of speech and of the press. And that not because, Thomas Jefferson and the founders loved, they think the press is random and raw and scurrilous, but as it was in their day when people wrote anonymous tracts of talk about fake news, of scandalously, smearing an opponent. So in those days, journalism, but the concept of a free press was recognized even then. And if we have raised a citizenry that don't understand that the underpinnings of our freedom are the right of a random news organization to get a story wrong. It doesn't mean they have the license to lie and make it up, but you can get it wrong, or you can get it differently. You can see something from a different perspective. That's not fake. That's a different perspective. But you know, I am genuinely, and maybe because I am prone to worry, I am a worrier, but I'm genuinely concerned, and I want people to share. If we can be unanimous about anything, we should be unanimous about our concern that the concept of a free press might be under assault.
Okay, last question. I mean, you've interviewed everyone, presidents and royalty and big politicians and movie stars. Is there someone more than any other someone that is your go-to, best, most memorable, most keep with you moment person?
Yeah. I have to say that last fall, Warren Buffett nudged. He was trying to nudge his way into the top 5, 3, 2. But number one, for at least a decade or maybe even close to 2, has been Michael J. Fox. I interviewed Michael J. Fox on the Today Show when you hadn't seen Family Ties yet. And Alex P. Keaton was a character who was not supposed to be the star of that NBC sitcom Family Ties. That's what made Michael J. Fox famous. And then he started making movies. And about every 5 years or so, maybe less, he'd be on the Today Show, and I'd interview him for his latest movie. And then he becomes a superstar with the Back to the Future trilogy, and actually was a superstar. I interviewed Michael J. Fox on the set of, not one of his more important movies, but Doc Hollywood was significant. He was in Florida. I went down for, I don't remember, maybe it was Dateline, doesn't matter what show it was for. So I'm interviewing him, and we're not close personal friends, but he seemed different. And I asked him about that recently. It was on the set of Doc Hollywood when he first had a recognizable and worrisome pinky finger that was the first symptom of what would someone years later be diagnosed as Parkinson's. And I asked him if that had been on his mind, and he said, well, it could have been. Either that or he was hungover from drinking with Charlie Sheen. But, you know, so he went from superstar to icon. And Michael J. Fox always has something wise to say. In Skywriting or Your Life Calling, one of them, I wrote about, and I won't go into now, a couple of times when he is in an interview said something that went ping in my head and changed the course of my life, really. But I asked him a few years ago about his buoyant, optimistic state of mind. I mean, we know that he has a really wicked disease. And by the way, Parkinson's and bipolar are neighbors. They're both in the amygdala. One has physical symptoms, and one has behavioral and mood symptoms, but we're neighbors. And so despite that, you know Michael J. Fox. He is a delightful, life-affirming personality. And I asked him, do you have to work at that, or does it come naturally? And he took the opportunity to simply say something that I think is good to leave you with. He said, I try to say yes as often as I can. No doesn't move you forward. Now, bearing in mind when I'm listening to him say that, I am kind of a naysayer. And, you know, I say no is my defense. Oh, I'm sorry, Carol, I can't come to Chicago for the DePaul event. Oh, yeah, maybe I can. So I say no first, and then I do yes. Until Michael J. Fox said that. No doesn't move you forward. Say yes as often as you can. And I started from that day just trying to say yes almost reflexively. Texting, yep, sure, absolutely. And I mean, sometimes I say yes. Randall asked me to do a story, my boss, I don't want to do. And you know, the beauty of being 67 is I can say, nah, I really don't think so. But I do try to say yes as often as I can, because buoyancy and optimism are not in my nature. I do have to work hard at it. And I'll leave you with Michael J. Fox. Thank you.